Hey everyone, we are live. Thank you everyone so much for being here this morning to celebrate such an important moment, such as the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. The United Nations Association San Diego chapter has been in San Diego since 1946, and we have a long history celebrating each year the anniversary of the UN. And this landmark, we decided to reenact the signing of its charter that occurred in 1945 on the 26th of June in San Francisco, California. We're very proud to have partnered with the House of Pacific Relations and the International Cottages in Balboa Park, San Diego to make this happen. So thank you again, everyone. Welcome. And I would like our partner, Randall, to give a few words to welcome you as well.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. On behalf of the Pacific Relations International Cottages at Balboa Park, I want to thank our colleagues, Stefania Marchina and Bettina Hausman at the United Nations Association USA, San Diego, for the invitation to participate in this historic reenactment ceremony. My hope is that we can find common ground going forward and support each other in future collaborations.
Thank you, Randall, for such wonderful words. I will be very proud to introduce Bettina Hausman, the president of our board, the United Nations Association San Diego chapter, who will be our chairperson today. Just before that, I would like to show you a quick video of the original signing of the United Nations Charter. I will just start sharing my screen. Give us a second here.
Here in the midst of war, the world's people collaborated in the drafting of a workable international constitution. It was a conference to write a people's charter, opening with the words, "We, the people of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind."
With that, I give the floor to Bettina, our chairperson for the day.
Thank you, Stefania, and thank you, Randy, so much for getting us all together today with so many of our colleagues from Balboa Park, the International Cottages. And welcome to our 75th anniversary of the United Nations. The founding of the United Nations is truly personal to us here at the United Nations Association, as our members of the UN Association helped to create this international body. In 1943, 42 organizations, including ours, had advocated for the UN's formation through partnerships and persistence lobbying with Truman and Roosevelt. Since then, we have not wavered in our commitment to promoting engagement with the United Nations and recognize its importance now more than ever for all of us here locally, nationally, and globally. As you know, today we are marking the 75th anniversary of the founding of the UN, and its very basis of the United Nations has been drafted in June 1945 on the heels of the conclusion of World War II. 50 countries met for a long 9-week conference to seek unity on international joint efforts to draft the Charter of the United Nations that eventually give birth to and governs this international body. In Truman's word, it created a great instrument for peace and security and human progress in the world. So today, we truly celebrate the past, the present, and the progress. The signing of the charter, as we know, has truly been a historic landmark, and its ratification today on October 24th in 1945 signifies the birth of the United Nations. A long 75 years later, our world seems smaller, our fates more intertwined, and our challenges drastically different from those confronting the generations that emerged from the rubble of the Second World War. Yet there's still so much to be done. And just as a truly interesting fact, of the 850 delegates during this San Francisco conference, during this 9-week conference, only 8 people were women. Gender equality remains the greatest single challenge to human rights around the world. Meanwhile, climate disasters are looming, biodiversity is collapsing, poverty is rising, hatred is spreading, and nuclear weapons remain in hair-trigger alert. Transformative technologies have opened huge new opportunities, but also exposed new threats. While COVID-19 has laid bare the world's fragility, it must be clear by now that we can only address these challenges together for a lasting solution. As United Nations Secretary General Guterres puts it, we have a surplus of multilateral challenges and a deficit of multilateral solutions. But let's return to the current event we are celebrating, the Charter, the commitment truly to this international body. It was clear from the 9 weeks of hard work in drafting the Charter that no one wanted a world government, but a work together to improve world governance. So as we look forward to connecting and networking through the multilateralism, the 193 countries today that makes the United Nations has to work effectively in partnerships across all sectors of society. In this spirit, let us commence our celebration, our commemoration of the establishment of the founding of the United Nations by reaffirming our commitment to the UN Charter and its ideals for an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable world for us all. In this spirit, I'm calling forward Belarus as a country to sign the Charter. Belarus, please take the floor.
Belarus have agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you. Brazil, please step forward.
Brazil have agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, the delegate from Brazil. May I ask Chamorros to step forward? Chamorros.
Chamorros of Guam, Rota, Saipan, and Tinian have agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you. China, please step forward as our strong committee member in bringing the United Nations Charter.
The Republic of China have agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, China. May I ask Colombia to come forward? Our delegate from Colombia. Czech Republic. Do we have a delegate of the Czech Republic present?
Czech Republic agrees to this Charter of the United Nations.
Thank you, Czech Republic. Denmark. May I ask for Denmark? Denmark, you're muted.
Denmark agrees to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, Denmark. England, may I ask England to come forward?
England has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, England. France, the delegate of France.
The Republic of France has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, France. Hungary.
Hungary have agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, Hungary. India. Do we have a representative from India?
India has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you very much, India. Iran. Do we have a delegate of Iran? Must have stepped out. Ireland. May I ask the representative of Ireland?
The Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland agreed to this Charter of the United Nations.
Thank you very much, Ireland. Congratulations. We have a 5 minutes break to review historic materials that was made available to us by a San Diegan by the name Walt Steffen, who was the former entertainment editor for the Union Tribune. And he was himself a delegate at the UN Charter signing in San Francisco, 1945, as the Army Informative Officer at that conference. And he made available all of the documents. That's just an excerpt of all the materials he left for our chapter. You will see the historic documents.
Thank you, Bettina. I will be sharing my screen with everyone now to share this important documents. Here we can see one of the most important texts, the preamble of the United Nations Charter. And this is one of the most quoted parts of the Charter, where we, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm the faith in fundamental human rights, to establish conditions under which justice and respect could arise, and to promote social progress. And this really shows what the UN to this day still does, and what United Nations associations along the world do to promote local involvement with the United Nations. Here we have some of the original signatures of the countries that signed in 1945 at the original charter in San Francisco. Following on the preamble, for this ends the peoples of the United Nations by to practice tolerance and live together in peace, to promote acceptance of the principles for common interest, and to promote economic advancements of all peoples by combining our efforts to accomplish these aims. So those partnerships and international cooperation at the center of the United Nations as the most important body for global governance. Here we have the list of the 49 countries that signed originally on June 26, 1945 in San Francisco. But as we know, to this day, 193 countries have signed and ratified the United Nations Charter and are current members of the UN. some of these documents are original pictures taken by our team. Thank you for the gentleman who provided these documents from the original signing in 1945, San Francisco. If you ever want to see the originals, we do have them in Balboa Park as historical documents. Here we have the first edition of the United Nations Charter, and this, the current edition of the United Nations Charter. Not that it has changed in its content, but how its outlook has changed through time. Thank you, everyone. I leave the floor to Bettina to continue on the next stage of our ceremony.
Thank you so much, Stefania. And I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the history, and it's truly something to hold in original in your hands. That thanks every delegate for attending. It is quite something. With that, I ask you to please join us in the next ceremony. Italy, if I may ask, is Italy to step to the screen. Do we have a representative of Italy?
Yes. Italy has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, Italy. Korea, may I ask the representative of Korea, please, to step forward.
Korea agrees to this Charter of the United Nations.
Thank you, Korea. Do we have a representative of Luxembourg?
Luxembourg agrees to the Charter of the United Nations.
Thank you. Mexico, our representative from Mexico, please.
Buenos dias. Mexico has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations. Gracias.
Thank you, Mexico. Peru, do we have a representative from Peru? I guess stepped out. A representative from Poland, Dzień dobry. Poland, you're on mute. Dziękuję.
Proszę. Poland agrees to this Charter of the United Nations. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo. Do we have a representative of Scotland, please?
Scotland has agreed to adopt the Covenant of the United Nations.
Thank you, Scotland. Slovakia. Do we have somebody from Slovakia? Dobry dzień.
Dobrý deň. Slovakia agrees to this Charter of the United Nations.
Soviet Union, USSR.
The USSR agrees to the Chapter of the United Nations. Dobrý deň. Spasibo.
Spasibo. The House of Sweden, do we have a representative of the Swedish government? All right, must have stepped out. United States, a representative of the United States. Perfect. Please unmute yourself and step forward.
Yes, United States will adopt.
Could you please repeat the confirmation?
I'm sorry, I do not. I can't verbatim. Could you repeat that for me?
Would you please restate your affirmation?
Yes, the United States will adopt the UN Charter, the state.
Thank you very much. With that, we actually are truly at the end of our ceremony today. I truly appreciate you being here, and let's just please be reminded what is in the charter, we the people. So the very ideas, as Truman mentioned, this is a true constitution. We the people means we 193 countries that makes the United Nations, that we recommit to its very ideals on peace, justice, equality, and dignity. So as we know, COVID has really made the inclusive multilateralism more urgent. And if I can leave you with the words of UN Secretary General Guterres, the founders of the United Nations began their work during the heat of conflict. Now it falls to us as global community to chart our way out of danger. So in that spirit, thank you again for taking part in our commemorating of the founding of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And I hope we all feel more invigorated to push forward to collective actions and ourselves in taking our part in this democratic process of taking our voices, pushing for the change we want to see for a more just and inclusive future for all. Thank you very much. And I want to give the floor also to Randy for final remarks, as well as Stefania, our Executive Director.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I think it was both educational and reminds us all of why the UN was started in the first place. There's still lots to be done today. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time, for your commitment, and from your daily practice of embodying the values of the UN. As today, we remember, we commemorate, we celebrate, but we also recommit to promoting peace, to building inclusive, equitable societies, and to celebrate the past that gave us the Charter of the United Nations in its original signing, to see our present, and to push forward to progress. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. I'd like just to say one thing. This is Joseph Sfire. I apologize for coming in late. I'm the president of House of Lebanon. I came as a person in Balboa Park. I did not think it was going to happen online, but I missed the message. But I'd like to apologize, again, for being late. And we are very much supportive of the United Nations. Lebanon was one of the body of re-enactment as one of the original countries. And so we take a lot of pride in that. So again, thank you and good luck. And we're here to support every effort you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lebanon. You're now offline.